I love traveling, and part of that excitement and fulfillment is when you come home and get inspired to recreate those recipes that made such an impression on you when you were traveling. On a recent trip to Turkey, I traveled along the Aegean coast, and after going to a really high-end kebab restaurant and seeing Künefe being made, I decided, yes, I have the confidence, I can make it. And so I'm here to share my recipe for Künefe with you. The kebab restaurant we visited is called Kırıl. It was amazing because they did so much in an open kitchen format. You could see them rolling and baking the beautiful breads that would come to the table warm. But I was enthralled by the little burner they had, and they would make Künefe to order and bring it to the table. And I've tried Künefe before, that beautiful crispy buttery pastry with the cheese filling and the sweet syrup. Oh, it just has everything going on for it. And let me just dive right into the recipe. Before I start making the Künefe, I want to make the syrup that gets poured on top at the very end. And it's a very simple syrup. I start by adding a little sugar to my pot. Along with some water. And I'll just give that a little stir. You want the syrup to reach a simmer, but you don't need to boil it for any length of time. You just have to make sure the sugar is fully dissolved and you've seen a few bubbles break the surface. Here we go. I've turned off the heat, and now I'll add a couple tablespoons of fresh lemon juice. And you can stop right here, or if you like that floral aroma of rose water or orange blossom water, you can add a few drops of that. I'm a big fan of orange blossom, but just a little goes a long way, about half a teaspoon. And I add that after I've turned off the heat. That way, the aroma from the syrup doesn't just evaporate. Now I'll take this off the heat and set it aside. The syrup will still be a little warm by the time I'm brushing the finished Künefe dessert. That's what I love about this dessert. It's so quick to make. Now to take care of the pastry. I have some Kataifi, which is shredded phyllo. It's really easy to handle. And where sheets of phyllo pastry dry out so quickly, and I find you have to keep them covered under a damp towel, Kataifi is easier to handle when it dries just a little bit, but you don't want it to dry out too much. And what I'm going to do is cut this into 1 centimeter pieces and then toss it with melted butter. I believe in Turkish, Kataifi is pronounced Kadayif, but this is really what you're after. This is half of a package, so 225 grams. Into a bowl. Before you toss the pastry with melted butter, you want to break up any bits of pastry that are stuck together, just from being packaged. Wouldn't my next adventure be actually trying to make this from scratch? I have never seen it being made. I imagine it's quite a process. I'm ready to add the butter. I've melted half a cup of butter, and I'll pour in most of it. I'll just leave about a tablespoon out for brushing my pan. I don't know if this is a tried and true technique, but I found tossing the pastry with the butter, like you're tossing a salad, keeps it from clumping, breaks it up a little bit, and then coats it really well. All right. Now that I've made my pastry nice and fluffy, it's time to press it down into the pan. I'm using the steel pan with the nonstick coating because the steel works on an induction cooktop. If you're using an electric or gas cooktop, you could use these traditional Künefe pans. These are from a local Turkish grocery. It makes an individual one, But the idea is to have them nesting, so you press one into the other to really compress the Künefe. That's what I learned was secret. I got a little bit of advice when I went to the Turkish grocery to pick up my pastry. So these pans nest. I'll pour in my remaining butter. Give it a little brush. So in goes half of the Kataifi, Kadayif. Really spread it around, make sure it's an even layer. And then you use the second pan to really press down and lock it into place. If you don't have two nesting pans, you could use a measuring cup, the bottom of a pan or a small pot, just so long as you're weighting it down, like so. Traditionally, Kunefe is made with a fresh, soft cheese that melts well and isn't too salty. It's called akkawi, but that isn't available where I live. So what I've been recommended to use is a soft pizza mozzarella. So not the brick mozzarella, nor do you use the burrata style or bocconcini style in a brine, but the fresh mozzarella ball, because it is fresh, it melts and becomes nice and stringy. It has a little bit of salty. If you can buy a low salt variety, that probably is better in this dessert. But I'll be honest, what I love about Kunefe is the butter with the crunchy pastry, the creamy cheese, the salt, the little bit of salt against the sweet syrup with the fragrant orange blossom or rose water. Oh, it's so good. I love how an easy to make dessert can be so fulfilling. There we go. So the cheese is in, and I'm keeping the cheese away from the outside edge of the pan so that it doesn't stick and burn. In goes the rest of the pastry to cover up the cheese. And this looks like a massive dessert at this point. But once you compress it, and then once it gets warm and cooks down, it really isn't unmanageable. So I'll just press this again. Really give it a good press. All right, and it's ready for the stovetop. My pan can go right on my induction burner. And you want a medium-low heat. A little tip, if you're cooking Kunefe on an electric burner, you'll want to preheat the burner a little bit so you're not starting cold. It depends on your cooktop, of course, or gas and induction, of course, the heat is instant. So I find this takes about 10 minutes to cook on one side. Then you flip it. You can check the doneness. You can always put it back in if you need to, which I might do until I get my timing right on. This is a new dessert for me. And then you cook it on the other side for 5 minutes. By that time, that middle layer starts melting, the cheese starts melting and becoming chewy, and the minute you have that perfect golden brown on both sides, it's time for the syrup. I'm gonna give my Kunefe a little flip just to see how it's coming along. It's been 8 minutes. So put a plate on top. It's coming along very nicely. Just going to give it a couple more minutes before I flip it for the final crisping up. The aroma as the Kunefe cooks is incredible. It's really all about the butter, but I can smell that beautiful pastry browning and caramelizing at the same time. I'm getting some nice little buttery bubbles around the outside of the pan, so I know I'm almost there. What I've learned when it comes time to add the syrup to your Kunefe is to add it in the pan. That way the syrup, if it sinks to the bottom, has time to soak into the pastry. You want to pour it on while it's warm. And I'm not pouring on all of it. You can serve the remaining syrup on the side. You just want to get a good even coating. I use my brush to fill in any extra spots. And I just give this about 30 seconds to soak in. That syrup lends such a beautiful shine to the dessert. All right, I think it's ready to slide out onto my serving plate. Listen to that sizzle. Get that last bit of syrup on there. Isn't that absolutely gorgeous? You know, not having grown up with Kunefe, I really feel like I was missing something, and this dessert is going to become part of my regular repertoire. Of course, you want to enjoy it hot. I'm going to finish it. I'll finish it with a sprinkling of chopped pistachios. At our kebab restaurant, Kurul, they put finely chopped pistachios and completely smothered it. It was absolutely decadent. Oh, yes. You've got that beautiful, stretchy melted cheese. The crisp pastry. I love cheese. I love butter. I love pastry. And here they are, all combined, and with pistachios on top. The texture, the crispiness with the creamy melted cheese interior. You can't beat this. Seriously, I think this is my new favorite dessert. As you take a breath in, with your bite of Kunefe, you get that hint of orange blossom water, the salty kick of the cheese, but it's creamy, the buttery crisp pastry. This is dessert perfection. And this is exactly why I love traveling, to try new experiences, learn new things, and then I'm able to share them with you. This has really been a special recipe for me, and I hope it becomes one of yours. And if you already make Kunefe or Kunafa, however you choose to say it, please let me know if you have any secret additions or secret tips to make it, because this is a delicious baking community, and I love when you share. I'll see you soon with another great recipe from around the world.